Let me first introduce myself. I am Dr. Kumudini Pati, an independent researcher who is associated with the Center for Women's Studies, University of Allahabad. And we are taking up the subject of Women's Studies, paper 15, the stories the states tell, and this is module number 10, which is about the Khap Panchayats of Northwest India. Now, let us first introduce the concept of a Khap Panchayat. Actually, what is a Khap Panchayat? You have really maybe not gone into the details of a Khap Panchayat, but must have heard about it in several newspaper reports. A Khap Panchayat is a union of some villages. It is actually a quasi-judicial body, and this body pronounces some very harsh punishments based on some very old age customs, especially in North India, mostly in Northwest India, and it exists in different forms in the rest of the country as well. Now, the gens of Rome. So, now this group of people are associated with each other through a common descent or a shared kinship, and either they perceive themselves to be children or ancestors with ancestors who are common, and they might also have a common totem or a symbol. The symbol might be some plant, it might be an animal, or sometimes they also have a symbol who may be a god or a kul devta or a deity for the entire clan. And these number of villages which are organized under the Khap are first formed into a guhan, and then this guhan forms a Khap, and then all these Khaps finally form a bigger body which is called the Sarv Khap. So, historians say that these Khaps have been there since a very long time, 600 AD, and these Khaps were there in Sindh, they were there in Malwa, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. In various parts of the country they have been there as Janas. They were called Janas, and later on they were called Khaps. There are more than 4800 Khaps in the country, that is a very big number. So, now 7 villages will form a Thamba, and these Thambas, when they are 12 in number, will form one Khap, and then these Khaps will have a maximum of 84 villages. So, how did these Khaps started acting? If you come to discuss how they have started acting, then you will understand that mainly they have been controlling women. Although it is true that some of the dictats have also given punishments, very harsh, brutal punishments to men, but mainly it is the women who are affected, because the women are vulnerable and they have very little support in a patriarchal society. So, in recent times there have been a lot of debate on this question of community organizations. A community organization like the Khap controls women's behavior and their sexuality, as well as determines all the matters which are related to her personal life. For example, her marriage, the divorce, her right to property, and many other such things. And these Khaps have been mainly in the news because of the brutality that has been unleashed by them, by the violence that have been unleashed by them in the form of decrees or fatwas or diktats, and these are called honor crimes. And these Khaps have also been dictating women's lifestyle. For example, whether girls can wear jeans or not, whether they can carry mobile phones and talk to other people or not, whether they can eat fast food or not, that is also decided by many Khaps. You might have seen in the newspaper, there have been reports of Khap chiefs saying that if girls eat fast food, they are going to go out of hand. Now, the very question that we are discussing today is whether a modern state can actually have these kinds of outdated bodies which are called Khaps. Now, we are living in the 21st century. We are living in a country which is supposed to be one of the largest democracies of the world, and we have a constitution which guarantees equality to all, whether it is a woman or a man, whether it is upper caste or Dalit, whether it is a person belonging to a certain community or another community, they are all equal before the law. Now, we also have a system of local self-government. We have a judiciary, and this judiciary is buttressed by fast-track courts and special courts. So, how is it that Khaps are still functioning? How is it that these kinds of bodies which are somehow banking on some very old age traditional kinds of customs are still operating in society, and they have a powerful base? Is it that these extra constitutional bodies somehow are being able to function because of some reason? So, let us go into the details of that. Now, why are the Khaps still relevant in people's perception? Actually, the structure of the Khap is patrilineal, and it is dominated by wealthy Hindu upper caste males. The chief of the Khap is generally, most probably, a man. It cannot be a woman. It is rarely a woman and never can be a Dalit, but yet it has stayed in society. And the most prominent reason is because it is considered to be a poor man's court. Why are the poor people going to these Khaps to solve their problems? The major reason for that is that the judiciary has a very complex system, and village people, the rural people, somehow feel that this kind of complex system is going to take up a lot of their time, their energy, and also money which they cannot afford. So, they want to go to a Khap which is very easy to access. Now, there was a big survey which was conducted in about 49,870 areas, rural houses, and this was conducted by the Haryana Public Service Commission, by the Haryana Backward Caste Commission. This was a kind of survey in which 2/3 of the respondents said that it is better for them to go to a Khap rather than go to a court. Now, there is one Satrol Khap in Haryana. This Satrol Khap has got a women's wing. So, many people started thinking that this is some kind of a feminist measure and women will get access to justice through the Satrol Khap. But it is seen that this Satrol Khap has got a women's wing which in fact does take up certain issues which are related to women, but still on the question of marriage, especially on intercaste marriages, although it has a very progressive position, when it comes to marriages within the Gotra, when it comes to marriages within a village or interreligious marriages, then this Satrol Khap women's wing is as traditional as the male Khaps, and so they also don't want to antagonize the society at large, and they don't want to disturb patriarchy. That is the important thing that one can notice. So, some sociologists feel that it may be because they are afraid of getting alienated from the fast modernizing developing society, that these Khaps have started this measure of building some women's wings within their own Khaps. And they feel that there might be some political reasons, because these women also constitute a big vote bank, and somehow they are important members of the society. Now, what is the role of a Khap? There is not much research going on Khap Panchayats. It is only some people like one Mr. Chaudhary, who is the ex-chairman of the Haryana Public Service Commission, who has said that the Khaps which were existing in medieval ages seem to be more liberal and seem to be more forward looking than the present day Khaps. And he also said that some kind of reform, some kind of harmony and settlement in the society was coming through those Khaps, and it was only through some incidents which came in the last few years. These incidents were very brutal and very inhuman. So, such incidents, it seemed, were because of targeting some people and trying to settle some kind of political rivalry inside the community. Now, according to the research and studies that have been conducted, Professor Khazan Singh of the Maharshi Dayanand University, Rohtak, Haryana, also said that when the tribes used to be in constant war in olden times, then the Khaps were very much needed, because one Khap used to protect the people against these kind of attacks by a different tribe. So, people used to think of these Khaps as some kind of protection to their tribe, to attacks on their tribe. Now, after the establishment of a justice delivery mechanism, a system has come where we have the judiciary and we have the legislature, and we also have a modern system today which is thriving. And so, why are these Khaps still existing is the moot question in point. We will understand this when we see in the villages that they give a no cost instant justice to the people, as opposed to the very time consuming and money consuming court, to which the people do not want to go. Now, one lady who is a leader of the All India Democratic Women's Association, the IDWA, she is Jagmati Sangwan, and she has done lot of work among the different tribes who are represented by these Khaps. She is also the former director of the Maharshi Dayanand University in Rohtak, and she says that now these Khaps have become redundant and they should be disbanded, that is, they should be banned and abolished, because now we have the Panchayati Raj system, and in the villages we have our own Panchayats. So, when we have an elected Panchayat in a village, then what is the need of another parallel body like a Khap? She says that the only reason is that these people are able to deliver justice instantly and effectively, whereas the Panchayats in the villages have become corrupt and they have their own vested interests. So, people think that there is a big vacuum, some kind of a left out space which is being occupied by these Khaps. And also there is another reason, that these Khaps have kept themselves out of all matters relating to money, to funds and any kind of development. So they don't have to handle money at all, and when they don't handle money, it is natural that people think that they cannot be corrupted. So it is easier to see that a Khap seems to be some kind of an honest body which is meant for the common people and which can give instant justice. Now, one case study is very important here, which we must discuss, and this is very important because it is the first time that capital punishment has been awarded in a case relating to honor killing. Now, Manoj and Babli, they were two young people who belonged to the Banwala Gotra, and now they were young and they were adults, so there was no problem, and they wanted to get married. They were in love with each other. They got married in 2007, but as soon as they declared their marriage, the Khap of Karoda village started objecting. This was in 2007. It is modern India, 21st century, and we have a couple. According to the law, they are adults and they can marry. They have every right to marry each other, but still this marriage was objected to because the Khap was considering it was an incestuous relationship. Why was it incestuous? So now the Khap has its own idea about incest. They say that if a person belongs to the same village as the partner, or a person belongs to the same Gotra as the partner, their ancestors are the same. So when they are descendants of the same ancestor, that means that they are brother and sister in some way or the other. Whether it can be proved or not is a totally different matter, but for all practical purposes, the Khap treats them like brother and sister, and so this becomes incest. So they declared the marriage as illegal and null and void. Now what happened was that because the mother of the boy and the mother of the girl were both widows, they were actually very vulnerable and they were weak in society. They did not have much support. So they were being made to suffer a lot of ostracization and social boycott. And so what happened was that Manoj and Babli went to the courts, they approached the courts and they got married there. And finally they asked for police protection because they thought that the Khap would take some drastic action against them. Now what happened was, finally they were given police protection, and while they were on a journey, they were going by bus, the police was also accompanying them. Suddenly it so happened that the police left them alone, and they found that they were not being protected anymore. At this time, the uncles, the cousins and the brother of Babli, the girl, they had found out from the police that these people are in a bus, the couple are in a bus, and they are heading for Delhi. So somehow they were tracked, and after they were tracked, they were dragged out of the bus and they were killed in cold blood. And the police had nothing to say because the police was supposed to have been involved in a case of dereliction of duty. Now, the controversy that exists today in the present scenario is whether the Khap can be banned or not. A PIL had been filed by one of the NGOs called Shakti Vahini in the year 2011, and Shakti Vahini had conducted a survey, and it thought that in areas where the Khaps had a strong presence, there was occurrence of honor crime which was much more than in other areas where Khaps were not there. So, Shakti Vahini felt that there should be a ban imposed legally on the Khaps. Now, on the other hand, you will see that Madhu Kishwar, who is also a very prominent feminist, and she has been in the editorial capacity of the Manushi magazine, had also said that the Khaps actually have a presence in India because people need them, and it is not so easy to ban the Khaps. So, some kind of a solution has to be thought of for the impasse. And what can be the solution? She suggested that the Khap leaders should be brought together and some kind of engagement with these Khap chiefs should be there on the part of the government, part of different women's organizations and NGOs, and they should be convinced finally, and then only their role can be restricted to the role of some kind of reform regarding women's rights rather than engaging in some kind of honor killing or honor crime. Now, it is understood by most people that the Khaps are very powerful. They are not only powerful socially, but also they have a political clout and they can be very violent. So, nobody actually has the courage to challenge them. It is partially because people are afraid for their lives and partially because they fear social boycott. Now, in the Khap dominated areas, the study that Shakti Vahini had conducted, it is an NGO which fights for human rights. It said that 81% of the police personnel and 46% of the residents, that is quite a big percentage, were of the opinion that the Khaps were raising the right issues for people. So, why should they be banned? And yet, it is also true that honor killings were most prevalent, honor crimes were most prevalent in areas which were being dominated by these Khaps. Now, the court started grappling with this issue of whether the Khaps could be banned or not, and in a very bold step, on April 19, 2011, the Supreme Court finally declared Khap Panchayats as illegal. And that one can understand, because in a democracy where you have the Panchayati Raj system, when you have the judiciary, having another kind of a parallel system of governance and a parallel system of legal justice, that also sounds somehow not quite correct. So, the courts had directed all the state governments to immediately suspend the district magistrates, collectors or SSPs or SPs if they were not able to apprehend those who were responsible for these honor crimes, or if they were not able to prevent such incidents from happening even though they had advanced knowledge. Now, as we were discussing earlier, the lives of women are most impacted by the diktats that are passed by these Khaps. So, it is one thing that the women are being suffering, and it is another thing that a women's wing, just for the sake of formality, has been also put in place by one of the biggest Khaps of Haryana, which is the Satrol Khap, as I had told you earlier, and Sudesh Chaudhary, who is in her mid-40s now, is the chief of that Khap. I think she is the only woman who is leading a Khap, and this Khap, which is the women's wing, is a constituent of the Satrol Khap, and it has been taking up issues which are related to female feticide and related to rape and other such issues which are also close to women's lives. So, the women's wing does oppose honor crimes, it opposes honor killings, and it doesn't want female feticide, because the Prime Minister himself has said that we must save the female fetus, that is Beti Bachao, and also said that these women must be educated, girls should be educated. So, somehow or the other, this Khap is also trying to fall in line by saying that girls should be given some kind of education in schools and they should not be killed. They are also trying to give some kind of punishments to rapists, so that people start feeling more secure in the villages. But at the same time, they will not allow love marriages without the approval of parents, and they will not allow any marriages that are happening within the village or within the Gotra. So, when we conclude, it is quite important to understand that whether the Khaps are there in some parts of India or they have become redundant, finally they are still carrying on the age old customs and obsolete practices in the name of tradition. And this kind of tradition, which has totally lost its relevance in many parts of the country in the 21st century, still continues in the name of our great glorious Indian culture. So, what we have to do is that we have to find out ways and means as to how the local panchayats can be made corruption free, how the justice delivery system in the country, which has failed totally, has to serve the people, and it has to be quick. It cannot be that the justice system keeps continuing with a case for 20 years and people will not go to the Khap. It is quite natural that when the justice system fails them, they finally fall back on their own village system, which is the Khap. So, now the village panchayats have to be somehow made foolproof and made in such a way that their vested interests are not there in the case of justice delivery. The justice delivery is not tardy, and when there is a new alternative coming before the people, it is only then that they will start going to the other institutions rather than falling back on the Khap. So, we can say that justice delayed is actually justice denied. So, many people are being denied justice, and when they are denied justice, they go for this bhaichara, which is a community bond which exists among the people in the village, and it gives them security in the times of need, in the time of crisis. So, they naturally want to be with them and have the support of these bodies. Now, the Khaps have also taken up some of the issues which are reform issues, like for example, education of girls and stopping female feticide. So, the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Abhiyan has somehow taken off in these villages of Haryana through these Khap panchayats. They are also trying to punish some people who have been involved in alcoholism or in disputes of property or on marriage disputes or violence in the family, and trying to build some kind of consensus in the village community that such people should be punished in a way that they understand that they should not behave in a certain way. But this cannot be done through some kind of a legal ban. We cannot have a legal ban for a panchayat, because as soon as you have a legal ban for a Khap panchayat, then it means that the Khaps stand up in arms. Like for example, you had seen that when in the Manoj Babli case, there was this announcement of capital punishment, all the Khaps were up in arms against it, and they started a big protest, and they started saying that even the Hindu Marriage Act should be amended, and somehow or the other this whole issue of within Gotra marriages should be thrown out of the Hindu Marriage Act. So they wanted some kind of an amendment, and some of them were even suggesting that to save girls for being raped, they should have some kind of marriage which is before the age of adulthood. That is, they suggested that maybe at the age of 12 or 16 a girl can be married off, and she can be sent off to her family later, but she should be married off early so that she is safe, and this whole issue of crime on women can be tackled in this way. So, of course, the feminist things, the things that we have been saying, they are very different from what the Khaps are saying, because their whole method of reform is very slow, and they have understood society in a totally patriarchal and a different way. So, somehow one has to engage with the Khap chiefs. At the same time, one has to have the district administration made accountable to rein in these Khaps. This far and no further should be the message that is to be given to the Khaps. Involve them in reform, but punish them when they engage in some kind of honor crime or honor killing. Thank you.